Hello, everyone, and welcome to our series of researchers that need to be celebrated. And our first guest is Linda. So, Linda, thank you so much for making the time and coming to our series. I'm going to ask you a follow-up questions. Would you like to introduce yourself, as in like what you do, everything that you are doing right now?
Sure. My name is Linda Charmaraman, and I'm a senior research scientist at Wellesley Centers for Women. I'm the founder and director of the Youth Media and Wellbeing Research Lab, which studies adolescents and young adults' use of social media and the risk and resiliency of that on somebody's health. We're also doing some workshops for middle school youth to try to understand and co-create ways to be healthy and positive on social media together.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I want to read so much about it, but we'll get to that. So, Linda, tell me something like from your childhood. Where did you grow up? Anything from your, any anecdote that you would want to share with people, especially any school anecdote, or where did you go, stuff like that.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, and my parents immigrated here from Thailand.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I'm a first generation, and I'm also first generation to go to college and make it all the way to getting a doctorate, actually.
Go immigrants.
Hey, I know, right? Um, and I was also firstborn, and so a lot of navigating new territories. Um, I, I can imagine the first time that I realized I really liked research was when I was in seventh grade. This is before I had a typewriter.
Wow.
I actually wrote handwritten like surveys for my friends about how
Wow.
they felt about life and about attitudes, about all kinds of things under the sun, like love and very
You
complex.
were a self-starter.
I just wanted to know these things, and I would put it in colored pencils, and I would customize each survey, and I would have fun tallying up the results. And I guess I was just a mini psychologist even back in seventh grade. And
Yeah.
so so
You
it's
just
yeah.
it just felt it, before even knowing it. That's really nice. That's really nice. Any one person in your life that may like inspired you to be the person that you're? I mean, like you can definitely pick yourself up and you could say that I inspired me because I have seen this with first generation immigrants or the first person who goes to college or school. Like, there's nobody to look up to, so they actually do it on their own and look up to themselves. But any one particular person that you think made that impact or pushed you towards the research that you do today?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question to answer. But in general, I drew a lot of inspiration from my dad,
Yeah.
who 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 put on a lot of hats in his life and try to make the best of what with all the circumstances he had. And he taught me about persistence and about the fact that hard work does pay off, even if people don't recognize it.
Yeah.
And you might make a difference in one person's life, and that's good enough. It's not about fame and fortune. It's
Yeah.
about having purpose in life. And so I feel like he was somebody that he's passed away now for
Yeah.
over 20 years, but I still carry with him my legacy everywhere I go.
This is something that I keep on seeing in all these amazing women with all the amazing work that they do, that they have a very strong male presence in their life or a role model, and especially it's most of the time their father, right? And that father figure actually gives them that legacy. And I have seen this, like I was talking to some Wellesley students yesterday, and the three of them said actually the same thing. They're like, it's our father who made us, like, become the women that we are today. And it's just so inspiring to see that, it's always important to have that role model to look up to, especially when it's your father. So definitely, definitely. Our next question is, what is it that you basically do? Like, walk us through your day. What is the sort of research that you do? If a girl wants to follow your footsteps, what is it that you normally would do, or where did you start, basically?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I work at a nonprofit called the Wellesley Centers for Women at Wellesley College, and we write grants and partner with other organizations to create social change through research and action. And so what I do is I think of think of societal problems that I want to, get solutions towards. I think of research questions that really make me passionate and really help maybe improve the lives of women and girls and families in particular. And I write grants, and then we hopefully get some funding every once in a while. We do the work. We empower the communities that we collect data from. We partner with them to create programming and social change projects. And then we write about it, maybe disseminate our work through social media, through journal articles, so academic channels, but also, public broadcasts too, like YouTube and Instagram. And yeah, so a lot of it is my day-to-day is working on teams, trying to figure out what do we want to do, like what's the future of all the procedures that we want to implement in order to make, the goal happen.
Yeah.
Planning, and there's a lot of talking to other people, interviews, focus groups, surveys. So it's very social, very collaborative.
And that's something like, most of the time when people are in that phase, it's you have to have people skills. So I'm pretty sure you have a lot of people skills. That's very handy. And oh my God, grants writing is not easy. That's not easy. I have been doing it for like 3 years now, and I don't like it. I'm gonna be honest with you. Salute to you. Kudos to you for doing that. But
you have to have thick skin for grant writing, because most of the time you'll get rejected.
They're rejected, and there are a lot of repetitions, and I'm like, no.
What I think about grant writing is that even the ones that are rejected, I feel like I've learned something that helps me for the next one. Like I learned about how I collaborate with a new colleague, or oh, this technique of writing wasn't as clear for this particular audience, and so now I need to write it in a different way for the next time. So I try to remember all the things that I can learn from it, so it doesn't feel like completely depressing.
yeah it is social, but also at times you do feel rejected, especially when you're like, oh, I have a great idea, I should tell it to someone, and then I'm like, no, this is not how it works, and you're like, oh my God, why not? But definitely that's something I would totally relate to. Tell us something that I do know about your research, and but for a person who's watching this video right now, the research that you do, what are the 2 to 3 most important research findings that you have found in the past 2 to 3 years that you would like to share with the people who are just scrolling through Instagram or watching it on YouTube right now?
Sure. Let's see. Well, that's also a hard task. But the things that come up the top of my mind would be that there's a lot of media attention on social media use and how harmful it is to youth and how it's a waste of time. However, my research has found that yes, there are ways in which it could be detrimental to one's mental health if you use it in certain ways. But if you actually look at all the synthesizing of research and meta-analyses and of many studies put together, there is no actual causal relationship between, negative mental health like depression and going online and social media. It really all depends. Like were you struggling with mental health before you started, and maybe that's the reason why it's correlated, or did social media do something that maybe cause you to think about things in different ways? And so it can go into both directions. And so I would say, and I also just had a study that we just published about the pandemic and how there's a huge increase of mental health struggle during the pandemic. And there's also a huge increase in social media use, but our study couldn't find a causal relationship between the two, and in some cases, social media is a lifesaver for some people. They're able to explore opportunities that they wouldn't normally because they're geographically restricted, like during the pandemic. They can explore identities that aren't something they can explore offline as easily, and so one of my takeaway points is that it's not the medium or the technology that's the bad player here.
The bad influence.
It's how you use it and what is the content and what is the purpose of using it. So
It's interesting when you say that, most of the time when we work with digital literacy or like girls, and everyone is like, oh no, but the screen time should be limited, or like, you cannot learn through the same media, the same way, the way you can learn through in-person teaching and stuff like that. And then to that, one thing that I have, like, observed, not even researched, but observed, is the fact that kids actually learn more when they're visualizing it and going through audio learning, rather than, like, doing it in more restricted environments where they cannot imagine or see it in person. So I think that's very important for us to understand, that it's not actually social media that plays a bad role. It's like, what are the triggering notes? But yeah, very useful. Thank you so much. um so I think my question from you would be, I don't want to complicate it for you. So you pick one question from your research that you think is, like, one of the common on general problems that affects the majority of the people, or at least women in this circle that we have. And that one proposed solution that you have found through your research, or like that you would like to propose to that problem.
Sure. One thing that comes off the top of my mind, especially for women and girls, is that they use social media in very different ways than boys and men. There's a lot more attention to beauty ideals and social comparisons, and wanting to be liked and validated. And so there's a study that we published about the impact of social media on your body image and if you feel body dissatisfaction after going on social media. And so some studies point towards, unrealistic beauty ideals from celebrities. We also found that, but we also found that the comments and interactions from your own peers can really affect
Oh
how
yeah, it does.
girls feel about themselves, because if people don't notice and they don't say, wow, that's a great photo, they don't feel the validation, it makes them feel inadequate. It makes them feel like, I spent an hour, trying to curate the best photo, and then nobody even noticed. And for some individuals, their self-esteem is contingent on if people validate them, either online, offline, and sometimes photos are especially something that women and girls, pay attention to and care about. And so I would say a recommendation maybe for parents of adolescent girls, I would say some of the effects of feeling down about yourself on social media, it has to do with your network. So if you find that your adolescent girl is feeling really bad about themselves, it might be because of the way that their network is posting. It could be that they have too many celebrities on their network. It could be a bunch of people that they don't know, and they feel really left out because there's people talking about all these wonderful things that they're doing. They feel like they're missing out. And so in order to protect young women and girls, we have studies that show that the larger your network size, the more you feel even more alienated when people don't notice you. It could be the algorithms too. Sometimes people that you actually know aren't seeing the stuff that you're posting. It's because you have all these other people on your network that you're just casually acquainted with, or celebrities. You just don't see it on your feed. And so it might not even be your network that's not seeing you. It's the algorithm too.
And the one thing that I just came to my mind is like, so when I came to the US, when I moved to the US the first time, like, this trend of, like, these plus size models that have started in the US, and people do it all the time. And so I was seeing it, and I was like, I was telling my friend, close friend, and she's an Afghan too, but she was raised in the US. So I told her, I was like, this does, like, you see this and you're like, oh my God, models are supposed to be so thin, right? And you just can't picture a model with a plus size. But then when you see a plus size woman, you see yourself, right? And you just can't imagine yourself being in that photo or there or wearing those clothes, right? And day before yesterday, I noticed myself, I was going through a website and I was seeing a woman. She was wearing a different dress, and she was a plus size model. It's like, yeah, this is cool. I can relate to this, So I definitely think it's like, it takes a lot of work on the networks that you develop or the stuff that you're exposed to, but it definitely does affect you in the long run. It doesn't matter where you come from, body image is always an issue, and it's always so young people, especially young girls, are so exposed to it that sometimes I do feel bad for it because there is no solution, like concrete solution for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of it's subconscious too. I mean, if you ask them directly, oh, are there any pictures that make you feel bad on your social media?
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't be able to say, oh, of course not. It's not,
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
like they don't want to admit to that. But then if you ask them, like if you follow them day to day and see what they're looking at and see how their mood is, there have been studies that show, yeah, your mood goes down when you start seeing certain things that are just too idealized and you feel like you'll never be able to achieve that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very insightful. I hope a lot of girls do learn from this one thing is like the fact they need to grow their network. They need to follow pages that are have pictures with more diversity when it comes to body. So any suggestion for someone who is more interested in your field, the work that you do, which is like, more researching how social media plays an important role in young people's lives, especially women and girls, right? If someone has to follow your footsteps, what are the 2 to 3 things that you would like to suggest them? Like, the areas to study, papers to study, journals that might help them understand, make a better understanding of what they need to research on or study on. Anything that you would like to share with them?
Sure. So if you're working on a school project, for instance, like a paper that you want to work on in terms of social media, I would say there are some resources out there that are free and open to the public. Common Sense Media is a great web page to understand about digital citizenship and the pros and cons of the kinds of strategies that will keep you, safe and healthy for both parents and for youth. And so that would be a great resource. I'd say also there's it depends on what you're interested in. There are sort of networks that are about internet safety and sort of privacy concerns, that end of it, versus also using it for a positive,
Yeah.
positive purposes like civic engagement and raising awareness of social issues that you care about. You can go into Google Scholar and search for some of those search terms, and you'll be surprised at how much work has been emerging in the last even just a few years of, because in the past, media research has been dominated by mainstream media like television, magazines, broadcast news, newspaper articles. But it's only been in the recent years that social media has been on the rise in terms of research.
Yeah.
And so very little is known about the latest ones like TikTok and Snapchat. But there's a lot on Facebook and MySpace and
Yeah.
the ones from the older times.
The older generation.
The other generation, yeah.
I can't still get my head around TikTok. It makes me dizzy. It's like it's just too much information and too too limited time space. My heads get dizzy. I cannot watch TikTok at all. Not that it's a podcast against TikTok. No, my mom loves it. So
Oh, really?
I mean, she's a better generation than I am, but it's just too much information to process. But yeah, definitely something that would be interesting. I think also like social media handles like Twitter, I think it's more subtle and it's more like it's not, it's just unlimited information, but it's also like written. So some of us can process that more easily. Maybe that's the reason I thrive more on Twitter. But yeah, definitely. So I am gonna end our conversation here. Thank you so much for making the time. All the links, all the stuff that you just told us about, we'll be making sure that we put them in the description so girls can find them. But thank you so much, Linda, for making the time and coming to the series.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. Thank you so much, Pashtana. And I really, really honor and appreciate your work too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.